Okay, so here we have a monopolistic company. We have a monopolist, which is faced with the following cost structure. Let's recall what a monopolist is. A monopoly is a type of market where there is only one unique producer, only one company operating, strictly speaking, having 100% of the market, one company, with the maximum possible market share, with the maximum possible price power, so they're price makers. Monopolists can set the price they want to charge. They have an influence on the price. They don't have to take the price as given to them. So they're not selling cucumbers, they're selling iPhones, and they can decide how much they want to charge for their iPhones, right? Product is unique, and because the product is unique, other companies cannot compete in this market. They cannot enter this market. The entry is blocked. You cannot produce your iPhones. You can produce other smartphones, but not iPhones because of legal restrictions, because of the patents, copyrights, etc. That's an idea of monopolist. And monopoly, as other types of market structure, and apart from perfect competition, they will be facing downward sloping demand curve. So for any type of market, any market apart from perfect competition, the graph will look like this: some downward slope in demand and marginal revenue line. As I explained previously, so marginal revenue will be below the price and quantity. As I explained previously, demand and marginal revenue line originate from the same point, but marginal revenue line is steeper. And basically, because demand represents the price line and average line as well, by the way, demand is simply the price line. It shows what the price will be for different levels of output. Demand simply shows consumers' preparedness to pay, what price they will be prepared to pay for each possible level of output. If number of units is this high, this amount, if if firms are willing to sell this amount, price will be that much. If sellers are supplying this amount, price will be that high, and so on. Demand is simply the price line, and price is equal to average revenue line. So strictly speaking, we can label this demand curve in different ways, and this is what we have here. This is simply our demand line. Next, we need to find what is profit maximizing level of output. And to do this, we start with our profit maximization condition. As always, to maximize profit, you need to find the point where marginal revenue equals to marginal cost. Find this point on the graph first. So this is your step one. Find the point where marginal revenue equals to marginal cost. This will determine your optimal production level. This will determine what output you need to produce. So this is our marginal cost line, shown in purple, upward sloping line. It's not a curve, it's just a straight line, marginal cost. Marginal revenue is shown in green. Purple line is cost, green line is revenue. Marginal cost equals to marginal revenue. They cross at that point, which means at this point determines the optimum level of output. So we go all the way down from this optimal point, and it tells us that we need to produce 200 units. This is what we need to produce to maximize our profit, 200 units. This will generate maximum possible profit. This is our profit maximizing level of output. Next question, question B. What is the maximum profit price? In other words, what price do we need to charge? Step 2, optimal price. How do we find optimal price? What is interesting here, please pay attention. Price will not be equal to 40 pounds. Not at all. It's not 40. Why is that? Because we can charge more. Consumers are prepared to charge more. What you do, you go all the way up to demand. You are only limited by demand. There is no point charging 40 pounds when consumers are prepared to pay 60. Your optimal price in this case is 60 pounds because you are only limited by demand. Demand curve, the blue line, shows how much consumers are prepared to pay for each and every quantity, for each and every possible output level. If you're offering them 200 units, they will be prepared to pay 60 pounds per each. And you cannot charge any more. You cannot charge them 70, you cannot charge them 80. So that's why, strictly speaking, monopolists cannot exploit consumers, which this is a common misunderstanding, common complaint that, oh, monopolists exploit us consumers. No, they don't, because they cannot charge you more than you want to pay them. It's your demand which determines how much they're charging you. If you want to pay them, prepared to pay them 60 pounds for their products, this is what they will charge. They cannot charge more, and there is no point for them to charge any less. So demand will determine the equilibrium price. So price depends on demand. depends on demand. So go all the way up to demand curve, and this will determine your equilibrium price. In this case, price will be equal to 60 pounds. Any questions? Okay. Next question. What is the total revenue at this price and output? So this was step 1, step 2, A and B. Next question is C. What is total revenue at this price and output? Total revenue is price times quantity. Price is 60 pounds. Quantity is 200 units, which implies that our revenue is 12,000 pounds. That's the revenue. What's the total cost? Next question. What is the total cost? Total cost is average cost times number of units. What is the average cost? Average cost is shown by our average cost curve, which is this brown, I think it's brown line, average cost. When we sell 200 units, average cost will be determined by this brown line, this point on the brown line, which is 30 pounds. Average cost is 30 pounds. If it costs us 30 pounds per each unit, and we make 200 units, it implies that our total cost is 6,000 pounds. 30 pounds per each unit times 200 units, that's our total cost, 6,000. Are you with me? Next question, obvious question, what is the profit? So question E, what is the profit? Profit obviously is total revenue minus total cost. So 12 minus 6 is 6,000. That's your profit. And you can show this profit, this is your best profit by the way, you can show this profit as before as this shaded area, that's your profit, equal to 6,000 pounds. Because it's the difference between price and cost per unit, so this is our profit per unit. It costs you 30 pounds to produce each item, you sell them at 60 pounds, which means that you make 30 pounds profit per each unit times 200 units. Multiply vertical size, vertical distance by horizontal distance, you get the rectangle. So this is your profit, and this is the maximum profit in our scenario because we've started from MC equals to MR rule. Okay? Any questions? So this is the summary of answers which we've given so far from A to E. So when monopolist is able to determine their best profit maximizing level of output, they would choose a point here where marginal revenue crosses marginal cost, which will imply that output produced would be 200 units, price charged depends on the demand, it will be 60 pounds, and the profit made will be equal to this shaded area, which is 6,000 pounds. Let's have a look what else our question asks us. So we've stopped here, and next question is question F. If the monopolist were ordered to produce 300 units, what would be the market price? Let's have a look. If monopolist has to produce this amount, 300, it implies that they will charge the price depending on their demand. They will try to charge all the way up to demand. They will go all the way up to our demand curve. Recall, average revenue line is the same as the demand line. It's the same as the price because it shows how much consumers will be prepared to pay for each and every quantity. When quantity is 300, the price charged can be equal to 50 pounds. And this is the maximum in this particular scenario. Monopolist is unable to charge more for this level of output because consumers won't pay more. It's the demand which limits monopolist's market power. So our next question is what price if quantity is equal to 300? Price for quantity equal to 300 will be equal to 50 pounds. So this was question F. And next question is how much profit would be made? This was F. Next question is profit. Okay, let's have a look at the graph. Profit is the difference between total revenue and total costs, or it's the difference between price charged and average cost per unit, which we've explained already. So profit per unit profit times number of units. Our price in this case is 50 pounds because it depends on the demand. What is average cost at this particular output level? Average cost depends on the average cost curve. So, and this red curve tells us that for this particular output level, for 300 units, average cost is going to be equal to approximately 35. So this is our average cost of production. This is how much it costs us. This is how much we can charge our customers, which means that the difference between these two numbers will represent average profit per unit. Price 50, average cost is 35, which implies that we are making 15 pounds profit per each unit times number of units, which is 300, which implies that our total profit is equal to £4,500, which is actually represented by this shaded area now. As before, the top line is the price, lower line is the average cost per unit. The difference represents average profit times the horizontal distance, which is number of units. And as you can see here, this profit is now lower. We used to earn £6,000. Now we're earning lower profit. Why is that? Because quantity is not optimal. This quantity is not equal to our profit maximizing level of output. We had to produce a different amount to maximize our profit. If we are forced to produce 300 units instead, then obviously this will reduce our profitability. And actually, this is the new nicely prepared graph. So we went all the way up to here. So we've covered F and G. So this is the graph which is relevant, which we've just drawn. Next question, H. Question H asks you, if the monopolists were faced with the same demand, but average cost were constant at £60 per unit, what output would maximize profit? Let's redraw our graph. Let's have a look. So question H, average cost is constant at £60, and we need to figure out what would be the optimum production level in this case. When average cost is constant, it implies that an additional cost of producing an extra unit of output will be equal to £60 as well. So for any range of output, our additional costs are going to be equal to £60. So every single unit costs us £60, and this amount doesn't change. The more we need to produce, the more £60 we'll need to pay. So strictly speaking, in this case, our marginal cost line, as shown here in this graph, becomes irrelevant, and instead we'll need to draw a new average and marginal cost line at £60. So this is how we draw it. So that's our new marginal cost line, £60 per each and every item sold. And apart from this, it's also equal to average cost as well, which also implies that this original average cost line is also not relevant. So now we've got the new combination of cost curves, new cost structure, and we need to figure out what the optimum level of output will be. As before, we select the level of output which will allow us to maximize profit. This is our first step all the time. To maximize profit, we find the point where marginal revenue equals to marginal cost. Where is our new marginal revenue? It's the same as before. It's shown by the green line. Where is our marginal cost? It's shown by a new black line now. Where do they cross? They cross at this particular point. In other words, this point allows us to determine the new output level, which is going to be equal to 100 units. In this particular scenario, when average cost is equal to marginal cost is equal to £60, our optimal production level will be equal to 100 units. Next question, question I. What would be the price in this scenario? What would be the optimal price? The price is determined by the demand curve. So we go all the way up to demand curve. When we offer to consumers 100 units of output, they will be prepared to pay according to their demand for these particular items. So our demand, shown by our average revenue and price line, actually tells us that for 100 units of output, consumers will be prepared to pay £60. £70, sorry. So this will be our optimal price, while 100 units is our optimal quantity. Price is £70 because it is determined by the demand, as before. Determined by demand. And next question asks you obviously about the profit, which is question J, H-I-J, profit. What would be the profit? As before, profit is the profit per unit, which is the difference between price and average cost. Price minus average cost will determine profit per unit times number of units. What is our price? 70. What is our average cost? We know that it's constant at £60. By definition, this is what we were given. Price is 70, average cost is 60, which means that we are making £10 profit per each item. How many items do we produce? 100. This is what we've calculated. So 10 pounds times 100 implies that we are making 1,000 pounds profit. This is our profit, and graphically it can be shown by this little area. This is our profit, 1,000 pounds, and this is the best we can do in this situation, with this scenario, with this particular cost structure. We selected a point where marginal revenue equals to marginal cost. This determined our productivity, our output level. Demand determined our price, and as a result we are left with this little area. Average cost is 60, price is 70, profit per unit is 10 pounds times 100 units. Next question, question K. Assume now that the monopolist decides not to maximize profits. So instead of trying to select output according to MC equals to MR rule, we will have some other decision-making criteria. Instead, we'll set a price equal to 40. For whatever reasons. For example, you try to sell your used textbooks on eBay. You finished your studies and you want to sell your textbooks. And there are quite a lot of students like you, graduates like you, who want to get rid of their textbooks for some money. And if the going price for a particular item, for a particular textbook is 40 pounds, this is what you will have to charge. You would like to maximize profit. You would prefer to sell it at 60 quid, for example, but no one will purchase it at this price because there are plenty of other options available at lower price. So 40 pounds this is what you will have to charge because you are limited by your competition. For example, this is a situation, right? So you have to set the price equal to 40. So this will be your original price. This is what you've decided to charge. How much will now be sold? This depends on the demand, because our demand line, the demand and price line, shows the relationship between price and quantity. It tells us how many items consumers will be prepared to purchase at each and every price. When price is 40 pounds, our demand line, shown by this blue line, tells us that we will be able to sell 400 units. Quantity is 400. So in this scenario, we work slightly differently. Previously, if this is our demand, previously we used to determine a particular equilibrium output which we want to produce, our target output. Then we went all the way up to demand, and this determined our price. So quantity was chosen first, and then demand determined the price. In this particular exercise, in this scenario, we are working in the opposite way. We set the price first, we choose the price first, and then demand determines the quantity. We cannot select both price and quantity together. We are limited by this relationship between price and quantity. We select one particular variable, and another variable will be set according to the existing demand curve. So in this scenario, when price is 40, quantity will be 400. Next question, what will be the marginal revenue at this output? Very simple. We'll look at the marginal revenue curve. So we'll look at this green line. So we have this line which tells us the level of marginal revenue at each and every possible output. When output is 400, it happens to cross horizontal axis. In other words, marginal revenue will be equal to 0 in this particular case, in this scenario, for this particular shape of the marginal revenue curve. So what does this mean for total revenue at this price? It means that total revenue is maximized. How do I know this? Because marginal revenue shows the change in total revenue. So if we imagine the total revenue line looks like that, so this is total revenue and this is quantity. Let's imagine that we have a peak here at 400 units. I'll prove this. Let's just start from this assumption. Let's imagine that there is a maximum here. When we have marginal revenue which is greater than 0, which is more than 0, it implies that each additional unit produced will increase total revenue. So for this level of output between 0 and 400 units, marginal revenue is positive, which means that the more you sell, the more revenue you will generate. Each additional unit will add something on top of the existing total revenue, and as a result, your total revenue will increase. For example, you used to earn 100, then you've earned marginal revenue equal to 2 pounds, which means that this unit generated 102 pounds of total profit. Then you produce another item which adds 2 pounds on top. Your total revenue goes up to 104, and so on and so on and so on. And this will take place until you will reach some point. So for marginal revenue greater than 0, your total revenue will increase. Let's imagine that our marginal revenue is less than 0. What would it mean? Marginal revenue, which is negative, implies that each additional unit which we sell will reduce total revenue. It will subtract some amount from the total revenue, and the more we sell, the higher is this quantity, the more we will reduce our total revenue. We sell more items, but each unit actually subtracts some amount from the original revenue, and as a result, total revenue will drop. In other words, when marginal revenue is greater than 0, total revenue will go up. When marginal revenue is less than 0, total revenue will go down, which means that total revenue reaches a point of maximum exactly at the point where marginal revenue equals to 0, which happens to be at 400 units. So this is an interpretation of the marginal revenue equals to 0 for this particular scenario. It will be, when it's equal to 0, total revenue will be maximized. I think this is it with this particular exercise. Yes, that's it. So basically, we've covered in these video lessons, we've covered all difficult parts of the seminar questions. The rest should be pretty simple. So the rest are mainly multiple choice questions, and because the solutions are provided, you will be able to do it at home. So hopefully you should be able to cope with them. Please make sure that you try to complete the rest of the exercises and check your solutions against answers provided. And if you struggle with any of them, you can talk to your seminar tutors. You can ask these questions at the next seminar next week. That's it for today. Thank you very much for joining me. Bye-bye.